Commander Zekthar of the Galactic Council had seen many species present their cases for membership. The Vryn with their crystalline logic, the Mothkar with their hive mind efficiency, the Quellan with their mathematical perfection. But never had he seen a species quite like the humans. The human ambassador stood before the Council's semicircular chamber, small by most standards. Her name was Dr. Sarah Chen, and she wore a simple blue uniform that seemed almost primitive compared to the elaborate biomechanical suits of other delegates. The chamber itself was a marvel of engineering, a floating platform suspended in the void of space, shielded only by invisible force fields that kept the vacuum at bay. Ambassador Chen, Zekthar began, his translator converting his clicks and whistles into standard galactic. We have reviewed your species application. Your technology is adequate, your science shows promise, but we must understand you better. He leaned forward, his multiple eyes focusing on her. Tell us about this place you call Earth. What is it to your kind? The question seemed simple enough. Most species describe their homeworlds in terms of resources, strategic value, or computational capacity. The Vryn called their planet Primary Node 7. The Mothkar referred to theirs as Origin Cluster. Sarah was quiet for a moment. When she spoke, her voice was soft but carried through the chamber with unexpected weight. Home, she said simply. The word hung in the air. Several delegates shifted uncomfortably. Counselor Vexina of the Quellan Collective made a dismissive gesture with her upper appendages. That is not a sufficient answer, human. We require data, population density, resource distribution, strategic significance. Sarah smiled, and something in that expression made Zekthar's sensory organs tingle with unease. You want to know what Earth is? She took a step forward. Earth is where my grandmother taught me to make bread with flour and water and time. Earth is where my father showed me the stars and told me we'd reach them someday. Earth is the smell of rain on soil, the sound of waves on shores, the feeling of grass between your toes. Irrelevant biological responses, Vexina interrupted. Emotional data has no bearing on Earth, Sarah continued, her voice growing stronger, is where we learned to dream, where we painted on cave walls 40,000 years ago, imagining what we could become, where we built pyramids and cathedrals and skyscrapers, each one reaching higher, where we wrote symphonies and poetry and equations that explained the universe. The chamber's lighting seemed to dim slightly, though that might have been Zekthar's imagination. Earth is where we learned to survive, Sarah said, and now there was steel in her tone. Where we endured ice ages and droughts and plagues. Where we made mistakes, terrible mistakes, and learned from them. Where we fought wars and then chose peace. Where we nearly destroyed ourselves and decided instead to save each other. Counselor Morthex of the warrior caste spoke up, his voice a rumble. Many species have histories of conflict and survival. This makes you unremarkable, does it? Sarah's eyes swept across the council. How many of your species evolved on a planet that actively tried to kill you? Earth has hurricanes that can level cities, earthquakes that split the ground, volcanoes that blot out the sun, diseases that swept through our populations, predators that hunted us when we were weak. She paused, letting that sink in. And we didn't just survive. We thrived. We turned those hurricanes into wind power. We learned to predict earthquakes. We studied those diseases until we could cure them. We domesticated the descendants of those predators and made them our companions. Earth taught us that adaptation isn't just survival, it's transformation. The chamber was silent now. Even Vexina had stopped her dismissive gestures. Earth is where we learned that diversity is strength, Sarah continued. We have thousands of languages, hundreds of cultures, millions of different ways of seeing the universe. We argued and debated and sometimes fought, but ultimately we realized that our differences made us stronger. That's why we speak with one voice now, even though we are many. Zekthar felt something he hadn't experienced in centuries of council service. Genuine curiosity mixed with something else. Respect, perhaps. Or was it concern? Earth is where we learn to love, Sarah said softly. Not just our own kind, but other species. We domesticated wolves and lived alongside cats. We swam with dolphins and protected whales. We saved species from extinction and mourned those we lost. We learned that intelligence isn't what makes something worthy of care. Consciousness is. She turned to face Zekthar directly. You ask what Earth is? Earth is the planet that taught us that impossible is just a word. We were apes in trees and we reached the stars. We were scattered tribes and we became a unified species. We were bound by gravity and we broke free. Sarah's voice dropped to barely above a whisper, but somehow everyone heard it clearly. Earth is home, and humans protect their home. The chamber did shake then, not from Sarah's words, but from something else entirely. Alarms blared. The view screen activated, showing 3 Kreshtar warships decloaking near the council station. The Kreshtar were raiders, notorious for their attacks on diplomatic gatherings. Chaos erupted. Delegates scrambled for emergency pods. Security systems activated, but everyone knew they wouldn't hold long against Kreshtar firepower. Everyone except Sarah Chen. She tapped her wristcom. Chen to Armstrong. Deployment authorization Alpha 7-9er. Before anyone could question her, space outside the view screen erupted with light. 7 human warships materialized from nowhere, their stealth systems powering down. They moved with a grace that seemed impossible for vessels their size, positioning themselves between the council station and the Kreshtar threat. "This is Captain Rodriguez of the UES Armstrong to Kreshtar vessels," a voice boomed through all channels. "You are targeting a diplomatic station. Stand down, or we will remove you from this theater of operations." The Kreshtar, apex predators of the galaxy for 3 millennia, hesitated. "You have 10 seconds, Rodriguez added calmly. The Kreshtar warships jumped to FTL, vanishing. Sarah turned back to the stunned council. "Earth is also where we learned that peace is worth fighting for. That protecting the defenseless isn't weakness, it's duty. That home isn't just a place you're from. It's what you're willing to defend." Zekthar found his voice. "Your ships. They were here the whole time?" "We protect what matters to us," Sarah said simply. "And we've learned that sometimes home means more than one planet. It means the places worth preserving, the people worth defending, the future worth building." She smiled again, that same unsettling smile. "So yes, Counselor, Earth is home. And now that we're here, among the stars our ancestors dreamed of reaching, the galaxy is starting to feel like home too." The vote for humanity's admission to the Galactic Council was unanimous. As Sarah left the chamber, Zekthar noticed she was humming something under her breath. A simple melody that somehow spoke of vast oceans and endless skies, of small blue planets and infinite possibilities. He made a note in his report. Humans are remarkably unremarkable in appearance, but they carry their world with them, and that world shaped them into something extraordinary. Recommend acceptance with notation. Never underestimate a species that calls a death world home and means it as a term of endearment. Outside, the human fleet maintained its protective formation, 7 silent guardians watching over the council station, waiting, ready, home,